Rooster Boosters. It's Rooster Booster time. I'm the big guy, Scott Ferrara. That's Mike the Grab, Blue Bob Perazini. Mike, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm a little cold. It's a little cold up here in upstate New York, but other than that, it's a great day to watch some rugby.
Yeah, shout out to Phil Harris, one of the leads at the Jacks Rangers, the New England fan club. They're all watching today. Apparently, they're all Toronto fans, so we can boo them every time Toronto does something bad as well. Shout out to Phil. I love Phil. I love those guys. The Jacks Rangers. I am freezing up here. So like Mike said, it's snowing up in Albany. It's going to be rainy and windy down here now. It hasn't started raining yet. There's drips and drabs. I believe the cold front's going to come in around 3:30. And the issue that we're going to have is high winds, right? So you have to be careful because the winds are kind of whipping around in several different directions here right now. And it's not even considered high winds. It's going to get wet. The big guy brought his rain gear, but, going to be kind of worried about this match, Mikey.
We said it on Tuesday. Toronto's not a team to sleep on. They definitely come out. They were road warriors last season. They still are road warriors right now, making it. But their sixth game in a row, I think. Today, being on the road. So
yep.
They're a tough team to play, and definitely the record doesn't reflect how well they've played.
Yep, absolutely. I believe we're going to go over the roster real quick, Mikey is, but just so you know, there should be no roster changes as far as we know. The news broke that Pago Heine is having season-ending surgery, most likely season-ending surgery for a torn hamstring. I see him here today on crutches, unfortunately. Other news and notes before we talk about that is Nick Civetta, I'm guessing, should be here by the time we come back and play New England back at home again. The varsity, I believe, is April 2nd next week. Then we're in LA. Then we have a bye. And that's when I assume Nick Civetta is going to be here, so we'll have some backup on that end roster-wise. But, Mike, can you go over the rosters for both teams?
Yeah, sure thing. Starting off with Toronto. 1, you got Cole Keith. 2, Andrew Quattrin. 3, Isaac Solomon. 4, Mike Shepard. 5, Paul Cellini. 6, Lucas Rumble. 7, James O'Neill. 8 is Ronan Foley. Then 9 is Ross Bradu. 10, Sam Malcolm. 11, Mitch Richardson. 12, Yuta Tufaga. 13 is Dion Robinson Bartlett. 14 is Johnny Sheridan. And 15 is Brock Webster. Then for their bench, you got Jack McRogers, Rob Brower, Tyler Rowland, Lulani Faeva, Ali Knott, Chris Bell, Will Kelly, and Giuseppe Dutoit. So that's rounding out the Toronto Arrows. For your Rugby New York, you got Chance McGlewski, Caleb Geiger, and Cololo up front. Nate Brakely and Will Tucker are the locks. Ben Benasso, Brendan O'Connor, and Kara Pryor are your loose forwards. Connor McManus at the 9 spot. Andy Ellis at the 10. You got Ed Fidow at one wing, Quinn Waddy at 12, Fossey at 13, Andrew Coe at 14, and Troy Lockyer at 15. So that's rounding out your starting 15. Then on the bench, you got Dylan Fawcett, Zach Talafa, Wilton Rabolo, Charlie Hewitt, Joe Basser, Connor Buckley, Sam Windsor, and Jason Emery. So that is your Rugby New York team for today.
So real quick, I want to talk about the Toronto Arrows lineup. I believe I'm right. I think they have four props in their lineup, 2 starting, 2 subs. I think they only have 1 extra lock in there. They might even not have a lock cover officially. But you know how the loose forward, sometimes they can fit in the locks in the situation. We had that last week where Nate Brakely was sent off, right? Brendan O'Connor moved inside, and then Kara Pryor was kind of starting at that 8 and moving over to that 7 spot. So that's just interesting for Toronto. And then we're talking about New York. So last week we had Jason Emery kicking most of the points for New York. Here's the thing. Jay's now in the reserves, right? So far, I've only seen Andy be, kicking. I've seen Jason Sam Windsor warm up to kick, but again, they're in the reserves. So I wonder if Andy's going to be doing a majority of the kicking while he's on the field. And I know I've seen Fossey Fuatai kick a little bit too, so I wonder if he's going to be put in for that kicking spot. Not really sure.
I think the big thing to take away from this, both Canadians are starting this weekend for Rugby New York. Both Quinn. I think what is this his first start this season? I know he's come in
first start of the year
for Quinn. Who he was solid all last year. Definitely deserves a starting spot. But unfortunately, we just have so many good centers that it's hard to break in there. But finally getting his first start, and then Andrew Coe, continuing to start for Rugby New York. So it's great to have both both Canadians in there, possibly in for a little Donnybrook. Who knows?
I don't know about that. They had a great internet piece, kind of talking hockey trash against Toronto this week. I thought it was a great piece of social media by New York. I know a lot of the Toronto fans like Doug Wilkie, Karen Gasparino really liked it. Shout out to Doug and Karen. Couldn't make it down here today. Hopefully we'll get to see him next year when I come up to Toronto. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to be if we're going to have a brouhaha or not. In my experience, guys just kind of lock up like a regular hockey fight. So I think we're going to see a bunch of that if it gets kind of drowned down to that. So my point
I'll say,
back to the Toronto. Oh, sorry.
Toronto's not a chippy team, so I don't think Toronto's a chippy team, so that wouldn't happen.
Exactly. And going back real quick to their squad makeup, to me, it seems like they're going to want to grind the ball. So what we saw last week, right, we saw New York take very wide, running wide in the gold mine, right? This field is a little bit narrower. I think Toronto are game planning for that, and they want to have the big beef up front as replacements for pick and goes because our defense hasn't been that great at that point. And our buddy Jason Zimmerman hates his job. Unfortunately, Jason couldn't make it here today. Jason, one of the season ticket holders here. It's starting to fill in, but everybody's cold, man. I'm starting to feel it. I got my classic hoodie and scarf and Rugby New York stuff. Like I said, I got a lightweight rain jacket. I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to do with it if it's downpouring like crazy. I think what we're going to have to do is we might have to match that brute force up front with pick and goes. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that they aren't afraid to do those pick and goes for Rugby New York. Every so often they'll do one, but it seems to do that like they do it in like a succession of three. We'll do 3 pick and goes in a row and then let it out fly to the backs. I don't know if we'll see a little bit more of that. Maybe we'll see a little bit some loosey goosey champagne rugby out of this. You definitely have to watch out for getting isolated though. This is definitely a team that if there's no support there to get that offload or for that ruck, guys like Lucas Rumble are gonna kind of swallow you up and then poach that ball. Either get the poach or get the penalty off of it for not releasing. So we can't be too loosey goosey, but a little champagne rugby will be fine, just as long as there is support there to keep the ball moving.
Absolutely. You mentioned Lucas Rumble. Last year he was a terror against us when they came in here and won big. And here's a little bit of bulletin board material. Not really sure if they used it or not, but if you guys remember the match last year, the game was essentially out of hand. Toronto had us by a large margin. There was about 10 minutes left. And instead of kicking for penalty and kind of playing it out wide, or kicking for a touch and playing it out wide on penalties, they kicked for posts twice, not just once, twice. Once really close to the end of the game when it was completely out of hand. So I wonder if the guys are going to use that bulletin board material. From what I'm seeing right now, they're very focused. They're loose enough, but they're not too loose. They're really getting their hits in early. A lot of guys were out here early during the opener. We had Christian Brothers Academy versus St. Peter's Prep out here. Christian Brothers Academy won, I believe, 28-5. And most of the guys were out here already doing their warm-ups, and guys like Jason Emery and Jack Heighton, who I saw who's on lineup, were looking like they were assessing the wind. They were walking to every angle, corner of the field, and checking and seeing what the wind was like. They were really looking at the bursts of wind when those gusts happen. What's it going to do in the corner? Because I'm sure they're scouting each other for their penalty kicks if they need to take them.
I was going to say, we talk about, kicking for posts and how much the wind affects that. But let's be honest, how many times do we really kick for posts during a game? It's really that, that penalty kick trying to get the ball to the sideline, because the last thing you want is, you're trying to get the ball out of bounds and all of a sudden the wind pushes it in and, you got a broken play. And I think a few times that's happened against us where we've tried to kick it out, maybe try to, take a bite out of a little too much and, ended up biting us in the ass. Another team, scoring a try off of what should be, a nice platform for us to set up a try. So, if it is windy, maybe we're seeing, little shorter kicks just to make sure that the ball definitely goes out of bounds so we can, secure that line out. Hopefully the line out throws are good. We know how crappy we could be in windy conditions where we can't really adjust. But, I have to say we've definitely improved on lineups this year, so I don't think that's the issue. Hopefully, it's, just making sure that we get the ball out of bounds, continue, ball in hand and having a good, strategic line out.
I mean, the past 10 minutes that we've been on the air, the wind has been going from my left, your right, to my right, your left, in a steady gust. And I think whoever's going to be on this side of the field is going to have a tough time making those kicks. And they're, like you said, they're going to have to adjust those kicks. You might not be able to get the length, but you definitely have to get it, even if you're just kicking it straight out. Getting it out into touch to make sure that Toronto doesn't have the opportunity to poach those balls in transition. Again, big thing last year at home. Toronto was very good in transition against us, and on the counterattack, a lot of their chunk meter plays were on transitions from kicks that Rooney couldn't defend well. Toronto was coming up and kind of punching them in the mouth. So I'm wondering if Toronto's going to try and use that same strategy, against us, because it worked last year so well, especially with this win.
I was going to say, you were talking about, bulletin board material earlier about, those 2 kicks for points. Connor McManus was the team that started. There was a player that started at home at 9 last year. This is his redemption, is almost a swan song for what happened last year, where he had where he tried to go for a caterpillar kick, and it got blocked, and they ended up scoring on it. This Connor has definitely improved, from last year to this year, especially you can see it's marked improvement. So let's hope that he continues that improvement, doesn't fall into that same old ways that he was doing. Hopefully we can secure the ruck a little bit better than we did last year, because it's definitely something that, Toronto likes to attack. And so let's hope, Connor just has a good game. He definitely is capable of doing it, and, keeps the ball moving.
Absolutely. It looks like he's been getting the ball out with more confidence. I wouldn't say quicker, but sometimes with that confidence gives you that little half-second quickness, because you know where the ball's going. Interestingly, Ed Fideau just threw a friggin' spiral pass that went about 40 yards. Too bad I don't have it on the recording, but we got to send him to the Giants, because we know they need a little quarterback help. So maybe you'll see Ed Fideau in a Giants jersey this fall. But looking at the forwards in the scrum here, again, I think we're going with a great set of front row. Caleb Geiger getting his second start here. He was a human wrecking ball on offense with his pick and goes. A guy who just knows to go forward. Again, sometimes though it looks like he's almost out of position on the tackle. And as we know, as veteran fans and players, sometimes it's not about gaining that extra meter as much as it's how you fall down that tackle to get that ball back, easily, and making sure that your teammates can come over you on the ball. So, we're going to see if we're going to have those issues today. Last week, we didn't seem to have them against New Orleans, but I also think that was due to the type of pitch. It was pretty much waterlogged, but I think it was easy to kind of scoot and roll underneath on that grass, rather, because it was so waterlogged.
Yeah, I don't know how they possibly played rugby on that pitch. Back to turf again. It'll be, like I said, it'll be an interesting transition to see. It'll be interesting to see, how the ball bounces between, both the wind and the fact that it's turf here. So we might not be seeing, those booming kicks. And also with the wind, we've seen, how, Rooney has kicked. Well, maybe we'll see, some of these low line drive kicks that, maybe don't get more than, 3 feet off the air, but definitely go further because they don't get caught up in the wind. It's just, I think, with all these variables, it's going to be interesting to see what, their strategy is for gaining yardage and, attacking Toronto.
I mean, just in warm-ups right now, they're doing very tight passes. Nothing too looping, just kind of next guy, no real skip passes. So I wonder if they're going to go to that, like we talked about, maybe not even pick and goes, but just the swift passes. Try not to start off with the looping stuff. Maybe lull Toronto to sleep and then break it out wide open.
Interesting. All right. Do you want to do score prediction?
Yeah. Let's do a score prediction.
So I think, what did I say? On Tuesday, I said Rugby New York by 5. I'm sticking with Rugby New York by 5. I think this is going to be a tight game up front. It's definitely be, a nice pack battle. The backs are going to have a real fight. So I think, Rugby New York by 5.
Our buddy Jay is doing Rugby New York by 8. I think that's 1 point less than he had on Tuesday, which is fine. Like we say, we give our score predictions on Tuesday. We reserve the right to change them as we find out weather patterns and rosters. I think I had it at Rooney by 7, a converted try. I'm actually going to lower that and be on the same, be with Mikey here. I think Rooney by 5, and it might even be a smaller margin than that. I wonder if we're going to, have a nail biter like we normally do against Toronto, except for that one aberration last year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game of rugby. I'm hoping for a great game of rugby. I'd love for a nice, Rugby New York win, nice, easy coast win. But, like I said, or like we've mentioned, Toronto's not a team to sleep on. They definitely, their schedule and it's a tough one still. Their record doesn't reflect how well they've played, and definitely cannot.
And listen,
take
I
it for
believe
granted.
this is their last road game until and then next week they're up in Toronto, up in York. So it's one of those things where that might be a motivator for them. Just a little bit to eke out a little bit harder play. Like we all know, everybody on the MLR field on every MLR team is 110%. But you never know. Maybe that'll kind of eke out 115% on them. But anyway, guys, listen, I'm going to wrap up. It's starting to rain already. It's getting real cold. I'm very excited, baby.
I'll say Phil Harris says, that scarf is legit. Where can we get a nice, Rugby New York scarf?
Well, if you guys go to rugbynewyork.com, you can go to the shop floor. If you're here in the stadium, visit my girl Jazz at the merch tent. She got these brand new scarves for the season. I happen to like this long sleeve shirt here with the Rugby New York. It's different than some of the other merch we have. Obviously, they have kits on sale. They have the new sweatshirts on sale and the new hats. This gray one, extra large, so it to fit me and Charlie Hewitt's fat heads. It's great to see. Anyway, Rooster Boosters, I'm the big guy, Scott Farrar. That's Mike Grand Poobah Parazzini. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Let's go, Rooney.